Welcome to Our Drummers Musicians, your backstage pass to Melbourne's vibrant music scene. Recorded on a cosy couch in Brunswick, join us as we explore what it truly means to be a musician and speak to the diverse talents that make music in our city. I'm your host, Luke. Today, I'm thrilled to be here with the mega talent that is Owen Downie. A very humble bass player and session musician, a massive inspiration of mine, and second only to my partner Luci, my favourite bass player in Australia.
Smart move.
Owen has performed with some of Australia's leading artists, such as Guy Sebastian, Jessica Malboy, The Wiggles, Vance Joy, Shannon Knoll, Ricky Lee, Bill Chambers, Simon Phillips, The Meltdown, Zoophyte, and The Veronicas. He's also played alongside international jazz luminaries like George Garzone and John Blackwell Jr. He's also played with K-pop superstar Kim Tae-woo from G.O.D. In addition to his extensive live performance and recording credentials, Owen is passionate about music education and creating positive spaces for music making. He has 15 years of experience as a guitar and bass teacher and has established and grown various music programs in Victorian schools and recently created a music program for NDIS clients in regional Victoria. Owen is the leader of the bi-monthly Yarrabanks Open Jam Session, a night dedicated to encouraging people of all ages and skill levels to develop their improvisation skills and ensemble playing. It's a long-standing event, maintaining a supportive and inclusive culture appreciated by professionals, hobbyists, and students alike. These days, Owen spends most of his time in Melbourne performing, writing, teaching, and trying to learn as many new instruments as possible. You'll often see him playing around town in all manner of venues, from jazz clubs to folk festivals, on many different instruments, and having the time of his life. Join us as we discuss Owen's passion for music, explore his current bands like Doc Halibut, The Higgs, and Andy McGarvey, and delve into his various musical experiences over the years, including being the musical director for the tours of podcasting legends Hamish and Andy's band, Cool Boys and the Frontman. We want to take a moment to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. Welcome to the podcast, Owen.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. What a great jingle.
Thank you very much.
I feel like I don't want to cut this short, but we have answered the question whether drummers are musicians. That was, checks out, and I don't want to waste anyone's time, but I feel good about that answer.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming.
Oh, it's good to see you. I feel like we got most of the good stuff out in the first 15 minutes, so we're making a cup of tea, but that's all right. We'll see what happens from here.
I know. Yeah, Danny Frugia said I need to have like a lapel mic that I can just hand to the guest as soon as they arrive at the door, and then that's just the podcast. The 15-minute chat whilst we make the cup of tea.
He is a wise man.
I need to clearly take on the advice. But it's so nice to see you and get to have like a chat like this because
yeah, absolutely.
You're like one of the main reasons that I still play music, I think, because over the years you've encouraged me in so many different ways. But whilst I was at uni, you got me into playing gigs with the White Tree Wedding Agency, and that just like was such an awesome opportunity to meet so many amazing musicians. And whilst I was like studying a jazz degree, playing jazz wasn't something that like really resonated with me, but doing like the working musician thing, playing weddings was really fun, but also meeting all these people that played for, like pop acts and country and rock and all sorts of like session work. It was just amazing. And I'm so grateful for that and all the other encouragement you've given me since then. And, even got to play a show with you when I was like 18 and it blew my mind. So,
well, that's incredibly sweet and touching to say. Thank you. And I guess this is, there's a sense of synergy here in that I have a similar feeling about one Marion Singleton, in that when I was, first kind of getting my fingers wiggling and starting to play in bands at church, your mum was the most encouraging adult who was an obviously incredibly talented musician, multi-instrumentalist, who would come across and genuinely teach in a way that didn't feel like teaching. And for someone who was, sort of largely self-taught, had a few lessons along the way and all of that, but, not particularly regimented, for her to come along in the middle of a rehearsal when, you're in year 8 and you're trying to work something out and you'll noodle around and she'll go, oh, that's an interesting idea. what about if you did that same thing but pointed it here and would give you sort of tips and ideas in things that when you're, an arrogant year 8 jerk, she knew the exact way to pierce that and understand what the idea was and how to make it better, and gave me a lot to think about. And often after those things, I would go back and try and work on them, going, why did that work? Why did it sound better after what Marion said? And so...
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So in a way, like all things in life, it still comes back to your mum. But I appreciate your kind words. But I genuinely mean that. She was always a great person who really encouraged me and made me a little bit better than I was. And it's always hard to measure all of that stuff. I don't think it's particularly important that you do measure it, but just acknowledge it on the way when it helps you to understand and grow. And yeah, Marion's a big part of that.
So is that how you started, like playing music for church? Was that like the beginning of like bass playing for you?
It depends what you mean by bass. I remember before I started primary school, my mum used to run these music groups, which was basically childcare with shakers. She was a brave woman, and we'd get all these people in kinder and creche and arm them with mallets and shakers and all sorts of things, and get people doing percussive stuff, singing along, all that stuff. It's fantastic. I have very fond memories of it. In grade 1, I started on cello. And cello's not, downright bass in the way that we understand it, but it is bass clef, and it was my first sort of entry into any kind of, you have to learn to control how you wiggle things to manipulate this. It's not just yelling, it's not just shaking. There are things here that you're not going to be able to do right away. And so my mum and I got cello lessons together. So we got a cello and we'd sort of split the lesson in half. And yeah, we learned cello together.
Wow.
So I did cello lessons for grade 1 to grade 4, I think, is when we stopped getting cello lessons. But I kept playing cello up until I think about grade 7. And then, so my treble clef reading has always been, and will always be, absolutely terrible. I'm a bass clef native.
Wow.
But no, playing cello is not, thumping quavers, or, walking crotchets or whatever it is. But yeah, that's does that count as bass? I don't know.
Well, like Jack Black in School of Rock, you just twist it and cello.
You know what? Cello players love it when you say that to them. They all love it.
Yeah.
So next time you see a cello player, just mention that and I'll go, thanks, man. You see me for who I am. Make sure, yeah.
Because did you get a scholarship to Bourne High playing the cello?
I did, yeah. What a scam that was. There was a few things going on, but that was part of it, yes.
So, but you only played it in year 7? Like you didn't do the string orchestra thing all the way through high school?
No. I think I last played in an orchestra. Maybe it was year 8. I don't know. But at that point, I was so deeply hypnotized and seduced by this strange new rock music that my friends were introducing me to. We've got my family are incredibly musical, but they never really did the rock thing.
Okay.
At all. My dad always said there was no point getting any albums after 1973 because Carole King released Tapestry. And that was about as heavy as it got for him. Some of that John Farnham stuff's pretty heavy. Some of that's too heavy for the Downie household. Okay. Like, it was the idea of coming into contact with something like AC/DC was like, what is this? So getting to high school and people are like, this is AC/DC, for example. This is Nirvana. I was like, what on earth is going on?
Wow.
Like, this is wild. And then it also happened to coincide with the very short-lived peak of new metal, which absolutely blew my mind. But, it sticks with you in your head. We're all a little bit embarrassed about it, but nonetheless, it's in there deep. Like, I forget people's birthdays and phone numbers, but that's still in there somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were a very easy listening family. But working out that I could, make noises that sounded something like that was pretty cool. And a lot of my friends introduced me to that and taught me that stuff. It's fantastic. So much fun.
Were these other like friends, because you graduated with a whole bunch of like amazing musos, were you immediately friends with them and it was like a muso chat friends group, or was that something that like came later, like, playing with like Andy and Raleigh and Gareth and stuff?
It's a little bit of both. So Raoul is this amazing Melbourne based singer across a bunch of different genres. Raoul Williams, her and I met in year 7, one of my oldest friends, and we worked out pretty quickly that our families had similar tastes in music. So we started playing a bit. I met another guy later that year by the name of Gareth Bowen, and he was in year 8, so he was a big scary brute. And I was just innocently playing Foursquare upon a springtime morn, and he marched into the year 7 area against all the rules of the school, at the peak of like a flying V of other year 8s. Going, "Are you Owen? I've heard you own a bass." It's like, "Oh, okay." And so we ended up catching up and playing. And, so Gaz and Raoul, meeting them at that stage, both incredibly influential musicians in my life. We taught each other so much, whether we intended to or not. I mean, Gaz is an incredible all-around musician, but he's, primarily a performer on drums. But we go listen to music together, and I might, know a little bit more about how to reproduce it on guitar or what the names for things are. But we would talk about it, and he would hear so much more than I ever heard. And that is still true to this day. We go, it's constant, we analyse it after it, and it's like, wow, his perception is phenomenal.
Wow.
And Raoul, her sort of obvious virtuosity with control of her voice, she was very interested in finding the right place to put things in the right key. Going, I know how this needs to phrase, but where you're playing it isn't right, Owen. You've got to find a way to put this in a different place. And I didn't own a capo. So, in a way, Raoul's search for finding the right harmonic register for her to perform in forced me to learn a hell of a lot of theory and technique without even realising I was doing it, because it was just about, we're just going to play the tune. And her passion for it, oh yes, that's it. It was this constant kind of like, here's a challenge, here's a reward, and you hear the instant improvement.
Wow.
And this is sort of all happening, year 7, year 8.
Mm-hmm.
So those guys are just fantastic. Yeah.
How special.
Yeah, and the fact that they're still mates, and they're around to my house on Friday, drinking cups of tea and whinging about the world as per usual. It's fantastic. I mean, what a profitable friendship that's been with both of them.
Yeah. So what was the rest of the journey like then? Because like if year 7 is that like musically intense and like, I don't know, you're developing so many different things there. Like most people would take like the whole journey of high school to find like some other people that thought like them and encourage them in that same way. Did it just keep growing from there?
Yes, absolutely. And there's many other people, and I feel bad because I've named some people, and I probably won't name everyone, which feels awful. And I know I'm going to walk into that trap.
That's fine. People can find the yearbooks.
Like I remember, Kate Kelsey Sugg, another huge influence, and a colleague from school. Sarah McKenzie, another huge influence and colleague from school. And one of the bands that we formed, needing at one point a fill-in guitarist for a gig in high school, and that's enter absolute Australian guitar virtuoso Andy McGarvey, who's a friend of someone who's like, oh, there's this Xavier guy.
Oh, so he wasn't a born guy. He was.
Oh no.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I've promised I'll stop saying that in public. No, he was. Yes, he was from Xavier College. But yeah, he's an honorary born high kid.
Okay, and is that the band Effigy of Now?
Yes, might have been.
I think I saw you play once. It was very exciting for me.
We had a lot of fun.
It looked like a lot of fun. Did that go anywhere beyond high school?
Yeah. We had we had a few really great years out of high school, and then it was, as happens a lot of these things, people's interests diverge and all that.
Yeah.
Another person I should mention, Chris Farron's, from remarkable musician, incredible ears, incredible discipline. Comes from a family of considerable classical pedigree, and his interest more and more in going down the classical trombone world, and and he continues to be an exceptional educator and performer in that place. And there's people who are going, cool, like this has been really fun. We sort of feel like we've done our things, whatever. But it's not about anything, having a breakup or anything like that. It's just interests start to go different ways. But what we all taught each other during that time, and going like, hang on, there's not a heap of rules to this. There's just you do things and then there are consequences. So for example, if we just go book a gig and we fill it up and it works, the next time we do it, there'll be more, and within too long you have a whole bunch of 19-year-old absolute idiots playing at the corner hotel. We had no idea what we were doing, but it was great fun.
Yeah.
And I think the learning in all that was fantastic. But also I think because we had such a good time so early on, we probably took it for granted for how easy all that is in the music climate to create successful music. That's going to be as widely appreciated as that was. But yeah, it's definitely fantastic fun. Yeah.
I think I remember finding a sticker of the band in the VCA practice rooms.
Oh, you're kidding.
When I went for my audition or something. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And Mum and Dad, I reckon, still have that CD of the album that you made.
Yeah.
It was an album, right? Not an EP. It was a
there was an album and there was an EP, I think.
Oh,
and
okay.
there was yes, I think those were all the ones that were released. There's a couple of incredibly low value live bootlegs kicking around. But I guess you could melt the plastic down. That would be valuable on some level.
Wow. So was there anything else like formative wise from like any older mentor type figures or anything like that that also influenced you from, that like different age generational kind of like music influence that a lot of people often have? Or was it more just around this, group of people going through it all together?
There were, but I feel like I'm going to run into the trap of naming names and not naming everyone.
Oh yeah, sorry, I don't mean to.
No. It's a hard one because there's no obvious like, oh, this person did that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some of it, but there's so many, and I've been so lucky. And if anyone who thinks that they might have possibly been on that list who is hearing this, you almost certainly are. Just being around people who are willing to share stuff, especially as older musicians, just even if it's a little tiny one-off suggestion here or there, or just being in the presence of someone doing something and them letting you observe it, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And even that's an act of teaching, letting an annoying kid observe what you're doing. And not every adult does that,
Right.
There's a lot there. My parents were absolutely fantastic in that I don't really remember learning. I just remember playing. I just remember it was more about the social than anything else. Music was it was no different to kicking a footy. Like when you kick a footy with someone, you're hanging out with someone. You're not practicing kicking. It was like that. Mm-hmm. So there was just a lot of music in the house, and Mum's always been an absolutely brilliant pianist and songwriter. Nothing made Dad happier than just jumping on the guitar, having a strum and having a sing, or whether it be banjo, mandolin, guitar, anything. Mm-hmm. And their encouragement, which is fantastic. Like Dad made me my first electric guitar.
Wow.
And was keen to make sure that I got a chance to play it with people. He mm-hmm. made me my first fretless bass. Like it's just the encouragement was phenomenal, and you don't sort of realize it because you're a kid and you don't realize that this is any different to anything else. But as I got older, going, whoa, this is like not in the parenting manual. Like this is them just being absolutely amazing. And everyone has different examples of that, but it was never really a fight to learn or play or Yeah, grow. I mean, sometimes I annoyed the hell out of them with music, especially in my heavier era, which I think will be coming to an end sometime in the next few years.
Oh,
I'm having a revival. I love it all.
Okay.
But yes, I think, they definitely didn't like all the music I liked. In fact, actively disliked some of the music I liked.
Mm-hmm.
But, I liked it all. So they didn't have to put up with Metallica every day.
Yeah, and I can see why that might, be slightly jarring to your dad, who was stuck in 73.
Yeah, definitely.
So, like speaking of your dad, he's made like some truly amazing instruments. As part of like that come through to you with like your appreciation of music from like a different perspective, rather than like necessarily just from like playing, but like the creativity and stuff that comes with like creating instruments, where it's like, oh, I'm like, everything that you do impacts the sound. It could resonate in one way, or the strings like this, or we could do this. And like he had that like kind of like inventor style of like experimentation, and then like the finishing. And
no, not okay.
Sorry, that was quite
no. That's
broad,
it's an interesting question. I haven't really given it much thought. My instinct is, in terms of what goes into making an instrument and the importance of combining that and the difficulty of assembling noise-making machines and how important that is, absolutely no influence whatsoever. Don't care.
Interesting.
But the part that does matter is that you see someone sitting there going, today I'm creating a new thing. And I'm going to make something that is a little bit outside the standard, because if I try and make a regular guitar, then people will judge against other guitars. I don't want to do that. I just want to make something weird and wonderful. And he'd delight in showing me the stuff. He loved making mistakes, because it was another problem he had to solve. So it was good modeling of creative thinking and good modeling of improvisation in a philosophical sense, and a really good method was coming out, which made it impossible to be held back by anxiety around doing the wrong thing. Because he's sitting there going, hey, look at this wrong thing I did. What do you reckon, Owen? Should I try this? Should I try that? And I'm like going, yeah, this is awesome.
Wow.
And then I'd go off and noodle around and do a terrible version trying to impersonate some, Jaco Pastorius thing. And I'd make all these mistakes along the way, and rather than beat myself up about it, like I these days I beat myself up so much about it. But at the time, I think it would have been so easy just to fall into that I'm crap, this isn't good enough kind of attitude. But when in the next room, when your dad is sitting there going, I'm trying to make a 7-string violin, and I've only got 6 notches on the bridge. Oh, what am I going to do? Oh, this will be fun. Hang on, I've got an idea. Come help me. That's... You can't sit there and whinge about going, oh, I can't quite get that stretch right. I better give this up. When he's next door doing that.
Yeah.
So in terms of, instrument making and the care that goes into an appreciation of noise-making machines, not really anything. But in terms of like modeling that free-spirited, joyful exploration, free from fear of mistakes or what others care about too much, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I haven't thought about it too much, but that's my instinct on that question.
Oh, thanks for sharing. It's there's so many different things that you've done that I would love to like pick your brain about over the years. But what's it like for you, where you don't you have a lot of work and lots of different projects and things.
I am very busy.
Yeah. But like reading like from the bio, thank you for helping me out with some of the bands, because like if I try and search like Owen Downie, I can find like little things across the internet, but you're not out there like plugging yourself like a lot of the modern session musician has, like a website or like a constant thing.
I would like people not to stare at me. Yeah. Yes.
So what's it like thinking about like the long list of musicians that you've played with, and then the myriad of other session work you've done that wasn't named, because that would take up the whole podcast if we tried to just read out your discography or something.
Look, I don't... I don't know where to start with that. Like, yeah, there's obviously, you know, celebrity elements to all of this, which are socially intriguing. There's no point denying that. But in terms of the musical experience, that doesn't really correlate in any way to how well known a person might be. Like the things that I remember and the things I care about, I can't see a relationship between them being, you know, the household name or not. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Like, but it's, yeah. I don't know. I guess I just feel incredibly lucky. I get to do all the silly things I get to do, and the goal is not to be, you know, famous or, you know, have the respect of, you know, this particular genres are or that one. It's just, I just want to make sure that I'm always able to have music as a tool for myself, because I can't stop doing it. So I just want to make sure that I'm good enough to be able to make sure I can keep playing with my friends and keep playing. Like when people call up and say, hey, there's this fun opportunity, you know, you want to go play these dates with these people. I can do that in a way that I can relax and enjoy it, really. That's the main thing. And you know, there's a celebrity thing about it that's nice, and you do get a little bit of buzz about some of that sometimes. But yeah, I shouldn't tell this story. I remember, like, you know, introducing myself to someone, and apparently I did this twice, and I offended them the first time, and the second time I really offended them, but saying, hey, it's really nice to meet you, I'm, you know, oh, and they're like, looking at me like I've, you know, insulted their family, like, you did my album. I'm like, oh, sorry. And then apparently I did the same thing 2 months later. And there was someone there who remembered this, who had heard this story and started pissing themselves. And this person's an amazing musician, and I have full respect for them. But that project, for whatever it was clearly not in the sort of realm of something that was going into my memory as this is sort of that great social creative experience. It would have just been a job, which is great and important, and I've subsequently heard it, proud of it, and they're amazing. Absolutely nothing on that front. But the stuff for me that matters is that being able to be free and creative in it, and that doesn't necessarily mean improvisation. That can mean absolutely mastering many moving parts across many musicians, and that's the value in that as well. But just being in a place where you can enjoy that is kind of the goal. And that doesn't depend on whether someone is got, you know, ARIA awards or not. In fact, I can't see. In my experience, I don't see a correlation. The only thing that might contribute to my own joy of music that I see happening in the trajectory over my life and has so far is that it might give me more opportunities to have more of those deeper experiences that I care about. Other than that, what was it like on the day? What did it feel like? What was the gig like? What's the album like? That's the main thing for me, I guess.
I guess it like shows in the work that you do, in that it's so varied. Like,
I love it all
because you're prioritizing that, like the music making over. So it's like, okay, sometimes you're on a big stage at a festival, and sometimes you're just in a small jazz club, and it's not about just trying to play a bigger gig or with a bigger name. You're just seeking like experiences of making great music. Oh yeah,
and doing it like glory gigs are great fun, but I don't think that scratches every itch for me. It's nice from time to time. I guess that's part of the fun of like just enjoying all the different genres. Like if I sat down and really wanted to get deep into any one genre, I would be so much better at that than I am now. At the moment, I'm the ultimate like, I can kind of hack across different things. But like this is part of the fun though. Like there's no genre so good that every song is good. There is no genre so bad that every song is bad. There are good and bad songs in every genre. And on top of that, like, there's no song so good that it can withstand a bad performance. That still matters. Every now and then you might get patterns of fashion where you might get gluts in certain genres and you're more likely to come across less well thought out performed things. That happens. But generally, like, the way it actually feels as it's coming out of the hands, or the way it feels when it's hitting your ears, that's what matters. Like, you know, the Rite of Spring is probably one of the greatest pieces of music ever written by Stravinsky. But it's not so good it's going to be able to withstand a performance by the Grade 6 North Balwyn Primary Orchestra. And I'm not ragging on the North Balwyn Primary Music Program. Keep doing what you're doing. But when people are enjoying it, they're appreciating the history and they're appreciating the nostalgia and they're appreciating the art context. They're not appreciating the fluctuating air pressure that's hitting them at that point. At some point, someone had to do that well. And that's sort of part of the fun. I mean, it's amazing how much AC/DC come up already, but AC/DC music, how many times have you heard terrible covers of AC/DC songs? They're playing the same chords, like they're singing the right words. It's because that the way that they built that genre and the way that they do it absolutely slams. And but their songs aren't so good they're going to withstand, you know, Owen doing it at a Year 8 assembly, really throwing it together and not really knowing what's going on. Like, no song is that good. So it's the joy of finding a way to get it good, and that's not to discourage anyone from, you know, explore everything. Absolutely. Like I play Bach so terribly. I am so awful at it, but I love exploring that, for me, to go through it and try and learn from it.
Right.
But, you know, I'm not going to be charging tickets for that performance anytime soon. But the experience of music is the main thing. The experience of it when it hits you, whether you are a listener, whether you're a performer, whether you've had some role in the creative construction of it as an arranger or whatever it is. That to me is the thing. I just want to make sure I'm in enough of the scene or a scene or many scenes to be able to keep doing that. That's the goal. Sorry, North Balwyn Primary. I didn't mean to say what I said. That was really bad.
Well,
it was a hypothetical example. I don't even think they have an orchestra. I don't think they've ever attempted the Rite of Spring. But I'm sorry if you have, and sorry if you nailed it. That would be egg on my face.
Well, people didn't like the Rite of Spring when the orchestra that it was written for first played it either. So, you know, they all got thrown rotten food on them, and it was way too intensive an experience for the pop orchestra, for the pop audience that came to see the opera.
I think, yeah, there are enough stories of those first performances of that piece that almost anything you say of it will be true, if you find the right source. But yes, it was controversial.
Yeah. Well, speaking of silly things, because you mentioned sometimes like the silly gigs, like I have to ask about the playing behind a curtain.
Okay.
Like, why did you say yes, maybe? What was it about the musical experience of that made you go, yeah, I'm in?
Talking about Cool Boys and the Front Man.
Yeah. And the faceless figure. I think it was behind a curtain, wasn't it? I'm trying to remember.
It was more a toilet screen type thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Enough to protect your privacy and dignity. Yeah, it was for Cool Boys and the Front Men, and the absurdity of it, of having, okay, we're going to have this hidden musician who's doing most of the work, was just part of the joke. You know, yeah, that's funny. I'm in. It's a bit weird sometimes, because there was all this like speculation on the internet about who it was. And people throwing out crazy names like, you know, maybe it's John Mayer. It's very funny. A few people puzzled it out. I think because they worked out that I was in a band with Andy Lee, you know, in Zoo Fight and the Higgs, and had pieced it together from some weird radio prank call exchanges we had on the air.
Yeah.
So, good sleuthing, everyone. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. Again, there's no offense in that. It's like, oh, no one even saw my face. It's not like it's going, this is part of a totally weird art experience.
Yes.
And it's kind of the idea that people would try and desperately see around this toilet screen to see who it was. It's more satisfying for me at that point to continue to hide than to go, oh, thank goodness someone's seen me. Because that's more fun.
Yeah.
That becomes more of a challenge. Very strange experience.
Yeah.
But what was very funny about that is a lot of the performers, because I was, the musical director of those tours, when you would have different performers turning around to try and get little helpful cues, because rehearsal was pretty slapdash, we'd rock up into town, get off the bus and go rehearse in a hotel room somewhere, all working on it together, making, yep, we're all cool. Mm-hmm. Then it gets on stage, and they're turning around trying to look for me for the cue, and I'm hiding behind the toilet screen, and they would sort of have to come back and go, yeah, give me the thumbs up. And so it definitely had some musical complications. But all in all, I think reasonably solid joke. The joke checks out and was executed reasonably well.
Excellent.
And I was happy to be part of it.
What was it like trying to direct the boy who drums or feels music or whatever Hamish describes himself as? Like, I just... like, how did you go trying to, actually, run a rehearsal with those three?
Lots of positive encouragement. Lots of goal setting. Focus on what's still to come rather than what just happened. No, they're great. They're great, and I know it's all a bit of fun, but they genuinely take it serious. Yeah, Andy's a great muso. Hamish is obviously a bit newer to it all, but they both genuinely were like, we don't want the joke to be that this sucks. We want the joke to be that, we're sharing something we haven't done before. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that kind of, crude music humor where it's funny because it sounds bad. That was never the goal. And if that was the goal, that would have been I don't know if I'm really into this.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there was some sketchy moments just because everyone's coming from different places,
Yep.
But yeah, I think they genuinely took it in the spirit of music can be freaking awesome and we want to try our hand at that. And this will be a fun part of sharing something with their ridiculously enormous fan base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thanks for sharing, because it seemed like a wild experience. I was following the podcast and radio show and stuff. I think maybe for the farewell tour, Andy said that it was we're going to get Owen back or something. And that's when I finally had confirmation, because it's been a little while since I'd seen you. I was just so intrigued by who it would be. And special times. And I like that, you're still carrying through, it's about music and experiences. And,
that was led from them. That was led from them on that one. Although I do feel really embarrassed because I'm not really in radio land at all. I didn't realise the farewell tour was a farewell tour until the last night, and said in their big breakup meeting, their big manager's coming out giving a big speech about how much they've done.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? Is this your final tour? And everyone, it didn't go down very well. It's just an involuntary comment. The sort of thought you should have kept to your own, but don't tell anyone that. That was really, yeah.
We'll keep that between us and the small podcast listeners.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
But no, basically, they're absolute legends. And it was a privilege to be invited to do that, and got a chance to meet a bunch of other great musicians through it. And they're both, and Jack, I should say as well, who was playing guitar, did a fantastic job. So yeah, they're absolute legends, and they smashed the hell out of it. And they're obviously great entertainers. And this was, I think, a kind of a pretty vulnerable thing for them to do, and they did such a bloody good job, I reckon.
Yeah, it's hardcore to put yourself out there, and then but with the serious element of making the music not being the joke, and pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Doc Halibut, because
oh yes, the most dangerous band in Melbourne.
Yeah, scary. because there's so many different projects that I could, catch up about. But like, I saw that you were recording some new music with them, if I remember correctly, last year.
Yeah.
And then,
It's scheduled for release in the 22nd century.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I hope I make it.
Probably realistically, hopefully in the next month or so.
The most mind-blowing thing for me about the band was I saw you and was chatting, I think it was with you, about how cool the music video was that you'd made at the Brunswick Ballroom. Or maybe I was chatting to Sam about it.
Yes.
But whoever I was talking to let it slip that wasn't the music video. That was a live take of the song that was recorded. And I think it just goes to show like the quality of the band.
And well, thank you. Honestly, that caught me by surprise too. And this goes a lot to Brett Gaskett, who did the engineering for it, because he just set up and did a live take of it. I remember when it came out, and I reposted the thing and said thanks to Nick Reeve, who did the video, because it's like, wow, Nick's done an amazing job. And I totally forgot that Brett Gaskett was there, because the job he did was so good. I just assumed it was the studio version.
Right.
And then I found out, I was like, oh, Brett, I'm so sorry. You're amazing. And so he captured that really well.
Wow.
But yeah, I like those guys, I know they carry on like a pack of idiots, and as do I. But gee, they play well. They really know what they're doing. I mean, I don't think I've ever met a more professional and prepared musician than Sammy Leskovec. He's just the most remarkable a professional in terms of his attitude. It's like it's going to be good. Like he puts in so much effort, and it's like and absolutely every single person in that band is a stunning player. And on top of that, the way everyone plays together and makes everyone sound better than they are is also in the mix as well. So yeah, they're a pretty special bunch of dudes.
Are you looking forward to, putting the music out? Is that something that, you look forward to, or is it just a moment in time of, we did it in the studio and it'll come out whenever, but I was just in the moment of recording and now I'm doing other things? And
yeah, I mean, I'm curious to hear it all when it's all done. I dropped into a mixing session, was it last week? And it was sounding pretty good. Miles Mumford at Rolling Stock is doing the mixing and did the engineering, and is amazing. I look forward to hearing it. But again, mostly it'll be like, let's see how we reproduce these things live. I mean, the one of the quirks of recording is when you record a song, it's when you know it the least. And then after playing it live for a year, you realize what the song actually is and what it needs. But it's very, very seldom that you're recording a song for the first time that you've been playing for a year. It's just doesn't often happen. Because you write something and you get excited and you run and go, cool, this will work.
It's like the invoice of all the old like great jazz albums where they were like on the road for a year and then came in and did the album because they'd been playing it, but that doesn't really happen anymore. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does, but we didn't do it.
That's true. But like most bands, like you say, would write a song and record it and then start playing it as part of their show rather than be playing it for a year and then go back and record it all. Yeah,
because often your recordings are kind of like your digital ambassador, right? They go out and speak to people and say, hey, come see this band because this is what you'll be hearing. So there's not a lot of premium on playing stuff that's outside of that in terms of the people who might have responded to the main way that you promote yourself, which is via your recordings. It's a weird little paradox. So yeah, I still think though it's such an important thing to do is just learn, like once your song kind of becomes alive, like learn what it needs. It's hard, and it's hard to do that without actually stress testing it out in the real world. Seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. Yeah, it's a hard one.
Well, before we finish, we have like a couple segments to end the podcast. And we're going to play this game where I get the guest to ask a question of the next guest.
Okay.
And because we don't know who the next guest is, it leads to some like fun and interesting
I've got one.
directions.
I've got one.
Oh, you'd like to ask the question. Okay, excellent.
What is your name, next guest?
Excellent.
No, sorry. I'll let you finish the sentence.
Well, I've got the questions for you to answer from the last guest.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, but I'll save that question for the next guest.
I think that's pretty embarrassing. Can I have another go at that? It's all right. Let's do the question.
All right, here's a question for you from audio engineer Andrew Masudi.
Okay.
Do you put your tomatoes in the fridge or leave them out of the fridge?
That is a deeply fraught issue in my household. I put the tomatoes in the fridge, but I frequently find the tomatoes out of the fridge. There is an ongoing dispute about the best place to store a tomato in my household. My partner has a different opinion about this. She is more interested in the short-term ripeness, whereas me as a responsible adult are interested in the long-term sustainability of the tomato. Where one finds a tomato is always uncertain in our house. But my preference is fridge, because I would rather it stick around for longer.
I have your second question for you.
What would you tell yourself 10 years ago to knowing what you've done now, things you've done now? What would you maybe tell yourself to... It doesn't have to change anything, but yeah, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago? Music related or, anything really? Learn this instrument or, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's a heavy question. That's a really heavy question. Most of my time machine related questions are usually me going back in time and correcting little grammar mistakes, like when I used is instead of are when I was meaning plural, petty things of that nature. I think that there's a lot of work and a lot of joy and a lot of improvement that I probably robbed myself of or have not yet been able to achieve. Because I wasn't thinking of what the goal is. I was more interested in what the context is or what the method is. And I think, there's a saying, begin with the end in mind. So the reason that you're doing what you're doing is really important. And if you get too caught up in the frustrations or the distractions or the ego or the fragility of anything else, I think it slows you down and it knocks you off course. Is that vague and esoteric enough for you?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a heavy question. That's a really heavy question.
Well, thanks for sharing. I found that the general trajectory of questions on the show has been seriously heavy questions. It's just in the last couple of episodes that this additional silly question to warm up someone in a false sense of security.
It worked. It trapped me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you can thank Yuri Pavlinov for that. Or maybe Ben Cripps. I think Ben actually asked the first silly question.
Cripps quips.
But you've also done it in the same way, in that you'd like to ask the next guest what their name is.
Well, no, I think we should do better than that. By the way, on Ben Cripps, I'm not sure he knows about this yet, but there is a book being compiled of Ben's greatest quotes called Cripps Quips.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't think he knows it yet. It's going to be amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, nobody tell him.
Okay, so I have to ask a question.
Yes, please.
All right, I'll try, I'm tempted to feel like I should escalate the heaviness, but I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to de-escalate. I'm not going to go totally not heavy. But yeah, I guess following on from the answer of the one I just gave, to our next guest, what are your personal goals for you and your music over the next 5 years? And what are your hopes for the music scene in Melbourne over the next 5 years, in a very practical way?
Okay. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
We've been chatting a bit the last couple guests about like, I guess like concerns and fears for the music industry in Melbourne. Like practicalities of businesses closing because of insurance premiums being so high, or people buying less drinks so the venues aren't like, you know, able to run the same like business model of sales and stuff like that. Have you found it impacting the music that you play yet? Like, are there venues that you want to play at that are closing down and feeling the pressure, and it's changing the way that you can make music at the moment like you want to?
Yes, there are definitely pressures, and I think the difference between, you know, are there structural regulatory pressures is a different question to the cultural scene health things. I mean, they overlap. I really am probably a dumb optimist in that if people continue to make music as a viable entertainment form, it'll depend at its core of having music out there that is good and worthwhile to do. And there'll always be a way for that to come through. But there's a sense in which that's naive, because if there's nowhere to play, then that doesn't work either. And also, if there's nowhere to learn, like if you grow up in a city that is a desolate wasteland of music, then you're not going to grow into the next generation of people who are entertaining the next people, who then perpetuates it. And the scene in Melbourne, you know, took a very long time to build, and it could be lost really quickly. And I don't know how you get that back, losing that generational talent. So the venues as partners are an absolutely essential part of it. I don't think the reason for every venue closing is because it's someone else's fault. But there are definitely some that are like that. And I think trying to think of the ways in which it might be your own fault. Like, how can I improve this? What can I do better here to help? How can I better partner with a venue? How can I better lobby various different organisations, governments, to make sure that this scene is being protected and grown and nurtured and promoted? I know as creative performer people, we're not always, you know, very good at getting our pants on in time for that sort of stuff, but we have a huge interest in it going well, and I think there can often be a temptation to sort of blame this amorphous outside pressure that's ruining everything, and it can often lead to inaction and hopelessness. And I think at the end of the day, this scene is made up of people. The organisations that regulate it are made up of people. The people who patronise it are made up of people. We can all have an impact on that. So I'm a bit cautious of committing too much to. There's too much structural external pressure on this that we can't overcome. Yes, there is. There is some structural external pressure, but I think that's a reason to get your pants on and do something about it where you can, or make sure that the people who can do that know about what your experience of the scene is. It doesn't always have to be you personally, but make sure that story is known. And yeah, keeping it purely based in regret and blame, as much as that sometimes may be appropriate, if that's the entirety of the response, then the trajectory doesn't change.
Well, and I think you're doing amazing things with the Aerobanks Jams.
They're a lot of fun.
I know you didn't start it, but you took over quite a while ago from Greg Scher.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And yeah, it's like it's cultivating this like awesome thing, and that it's going on that it has been going on for so long, I think is like a real testament to like the positive place that you've created there. Like, it hasn't become like a place where people just try and burn each other off the bandstand, or, you know, some of that like old school competitive type jam situations. And I think the fact that like it's so open to like so many different skill levels coming up and play and being involved, so it's not like an elitist exclusionary zone either. It's a really special thing you're doing there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, look, I think it's important to say that. Yeah, I didn't start it. Greg was the one who was running it before me, and he's bloody amazing. But yeah, I've been running it for 9 years. It was 9 years last week, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. What am I doing with my life? That was good fun, and it's a nice little entry point, and it's also a great way to just go and learn. Like, it keeps me on my absolute toes. But also, it's really hard to learn improv or jazz music without other people. Like, there's a limit to what you can do in your bedroom. Like, playing with someone for 20 minutes, it's got to be worth 10 hours playing by yourself. You know, you sort of hit a point where at some point you've got to stress test these skills in a real situation.
Well, thanks for doing it, and yeah, I hope it just keeps going. And even if you're not doing it for another like,
no, I'm
years,
sure it will. I'm sure it will. I'm sure whoever continues to run it, whether I'm doing it or not, it'll be great. Because it's again, like Duncan Schmoll, I think started it. Greg Scher did a great job running it for his time doing it, and he tapped me on the shoulder for it. And yeah, it's everyone's thing. It's yeah, I'm just the idiot who introduces people.
I'm going to finish with 5 short answer questions from you, please.
Okay.
Owen, what is your favourite venue to play in Melbourne?
Pass.
I'm letting people put on different hats for different things. So if you want to put on some genre-specific hats, and are there any Can I get you to commit to like a favourite venue with a band, or in a certain framework, or recording studio, or practice room?
They have cream biscuits at Lighting Lab in the practice rooms. So if you're really lucky, you'll get a Kingston. I feel bad because it'll change depending on what you're playing and what mood you're in. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that.
That's fair. All right. What is your dream venue to play at?
Something that smells good. And, great sound, not too distant from the audience, like not too big that the sound isn't responsive, but big enough to make sure it can definitely get to that sort of upper edge of what humans enjoy experiencing in terms of fluctuating air pressure. That sort of range is ideal. A lot of those sort of 400-person venues, I think, are great for that sort of thing. But preferably with something with like a kitchen that's just got like the smell of fried goods just pumped through.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
I really like that you've answered that conceptually. Like, only one other guest so far on the podcast. Everybody else lists a venue. Like, I would like to play the Forum. Perhaps it's like probably the most listed dream venue. But Mel Sutter Green also answered with a sonically enjoyable room where good music is made, or something similar. And yeah, I like that that's where you're thinking.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? So, that's why we're there.
All right, what is your coffee order?
Oh, it has traditionally been a latte. At the moment, it's a long black with sometimes a spot of milk.
What is your favourite venue to get food at after a gig?
For years, I lived off the $4.50 meal deal from Souvlaki Pizza on Brunswick Street, or Lamb's as it's known. It's a slice of lamb lovers, 2 dim sums and a potato cake, which is just one word. And they'd often give you $1 of tzatziki sauce on the lamb lovers pizza, which is $2.50, then $2 for the 2 dim sums and potato cake. When that hit the $5 mark, I was outraged. It opened surprisingly recently. I think it's up to about $7.20 now. Mm-hmm. But that's just my staple slice of lamb lovers, 2 dim sums and a potato cake.
Awesome.
$4.50 meal deal.
What a steal. Finally, What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Wait, didn't we do this one?
Well, yes, but this is the question I ask everybody.
Okay.
So I could change it. No, let's change it. What is one piece of musical gear or equipment that you could not live without?
No, I'm happy to do the first one. I love my P bass. It's pretty special. I really like that one. But yeah, I don't know. I just reckon there's been times when I robbed myself of an opportunity to pick up some good tips and wisdom because I just was an idiot and wasn't listening properly to people around me, both in the things they say or what they were playing. That would be it. Just shut up and listen sometimes. And it's hard to always do that, but I think there's, especially go through seasons in your life where you're not very receptive, and those are the sort of the times I'm referring to going, you probably robbed yourself of a bit of free advancement here. That'll be it.
Well, thank you for sharing this and so many, fun stories and some origin moments and
yeah, it's been
insights.
good, Luke. It's been
Thanks.
really good.
I'll put up on the website a bunch of links to some bands and stuff that are putting out music. You're not really a big social media guy.
No, sorry.
But I suppose if people want to listen to what you're doing, I'll check in with you when this podcast comes out, and we can just list bands, albums.
I'll get you some things.
Yarrabanks Jam, for people that want to go down into Northcote, and if people want to book you or whatever, I guess they can just reach out through the podcast and say, we'd really like to hire Owen for a gig at the Tote. So I'll now pass on their details to you.
Yeah, my white whale.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Luke. This has been great.
Thanks for joining us on Our Drummers Musicians. I hope you enjoyed diving into the world of another musician as much as I did. Help us grow by leaving a review and sharing the podcast with your friends, family, favorite artist, or anyone else who might enjoy it. For more info and updates, visit ourdrummersmusicians.com. See you next time.